Okay, then I'm going to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Simsbury Planning Commission. Today is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, and the time is 7:03. Good. So let's call to order. If everyone who can, please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Oops, I gotta share my screen. How do okay, share screen, share. Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, sharing. Okay, now I'll go on to the roll call. Please indicate if you're here. Holly Bem.
Here.
David Blumey.
Here.
Aaron Levitt-Smith.
Here.
Craig McCormack. Absent. Alan Needham. Okay, he has resigned. William Rice, present. Rich Cortez. Absent. Julie Eaton. Julie, are you there? Absent. Okay, so we do have 4 regular members of the commission tonight. That is considered a quorum. So we are free to perform business.
Well, before you go, you said Alan resigned?
Yeah, let me see. When did I first have him resigning? On our September 14th meeting, that was the first meeting where he had actually resigned. So he moved out of town.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we have some minutes. Okay, so last meeting was canceled due to lack of any business. So our last meeting was October 12th, 2021. In the absence of a secretary, I will go ahead and walk us through the review of the minutes. So here we go. Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. Any comments on the first page, which for me runs from line 1 to line 49?
I didn't see anything.
Nor did I. Okay. Page 2, which for me runs from line 50 to 98.
Yeah, on line 55, where it says allows there, it's right at the beginning of the sentence.
Yep.
It should be THEIR,
Okay.
not THERE.
Okay, we have a spelling change. Line 50, the word there, currently spelled THERE, to be changed to THEIR. I didn't see anything else.
I'd like to make an addition to line 85.
Line 85. Okay, Holly.
Made the commission aware of a few notable spots in the POCD where photographs of new developments could be added. Well, the point was to be added to include examples of Simsbury's inclusivity. That was the point that was being made, not just saying, oh, let's update the photographs. It was specifically in regard to our discussions about changing text and making a point that changing the photographs could include examples of Simsbury's inclusivity.
Okay, so the comment is to append Holly's comment recorded in line 8485. Such that would read, Ms. Bem made the commission aware of a few notable spots in the POCD where photographs of new developments could be added as examples of Simsbury's inclusivity.
Yes.
Okay. I have no objection to that. Anything else on page 2? Page 3, lines 99 to 106. Not much of real content there. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Dave Blumey, okay.
I'll second.
Aaron seconds, thank you. Any discussion on the amendments to the minutes? All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as amended, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you. Okay, next on the list, we have a referral from the zoning commission. So Mike, the information that was included with the invitation and the Dropbox had a little letter from Laura Barkowski doing a comparison of the current Simsbury zoning regulations as they apply to accessory dwelling units compared to the new Connecticut State Legislature PA 21-29. So I didn't really see the application itself. Is there a
There's an application there, but really the intent of this is that the zoning commission is determining whether they want to opt out of the law. So they're required to hold a public hearing, like Laura noted. It's
Yep.
really not your normal text amendment. They're just saying, if we opt out, we regulate on our own, or if we do nothing, then the state law applies. And Laura did a pretty comprehensive job of going through and showing the existing regulations as it relates to accessory dwelling units in some of the areas where there's either differences with the proposal or areas that our regs do not cover. So the zoning commission, they have not taken a position whether it's yay or nay to opt out at this point. They scheduled the public hearing to kind of get input. They wanted to hear from this commission just because accessory dwelling units are traditionally tied to affordable housing. At least some individuals say that's what diversifies your housing stock in the community. So they wanted to know, if there was any input from this commission. It's not your normal 8.3a.
okay.
It's not your normal 8.3a referral where the zoning commission is changing the regs and saying, is this consistent with your POCD? If they were to opt out, then what would be the next step? In addition to just say specific to the zoning commission, is if the Board of Selectmen were to vote and agree, because it requires not only the zoning commission to say no, the legislative body also has to vote and say no, to opt out. They would look at their regs and possibly make some changes to their regs to kind of address some of these issues that are in the state law, but more importantly, have the ability to regulate. That's really what it boils down to. Probably the biggest thing you'll see is the size, the minimum size. Well, two things I should say. One, right now in the approval process, if you're adding a accessory dwelling unit and it's attached to your house, it's approved via site plan by the zoning commission. So it's an administrative process that goes to the zoning commission. If it's detached, meaning you want to use a detached structure, it's a special permit or a special exception going through a public hearing process. The state law says that those no longer apply. These are as of right. So if we were to say we're going to stick with the state law, what it means is anywhere you have a home, you have potential for someone to say, I'm adding a second dwelling unit, whether it's attached or detached, I'm adding it and it's as of right. I don't have to go to the zoning commission. I literally have the rights to file a building permit, which provided I meet the limited design criteria that are in the statute, it would be approved.
So I have a question. What is the benefit of doing our own regulations as opposed to adopting the state? Because I did read the document and some of the changes make sense. So how is it going to be that much different and what's the benefit?
So some of the changes could be, well, one, the parking standards is something that really deserves attention. If
Okay.
you see right now, we have parking standards. You look at the state law, the law that is now in effect, parking standards no longer apply to accessory dwelling units. It's a reduced parking ratio versus what we require currently. So that's one area where we may want to regulate that to make sure that, let's say you're renting an apartment, you actually have someplace to park versus, stuck on the road, the street, et cetera. The other is, the 600 square feet, which is the current maximum size that the zoning commission allows under their regulations, that we landed on that 600 square feet back in 2019, I believe, 2018. This commission may remember, after a series of court cases of which the zoning commission lost on denial of accessory dwelling units, the biggest thing that the commission heard for complaints during this was the size of those. We used to allow 1,000 square feet. And what the commission was seeing was 2 and 3 bedroom units at 1,000 square feet. And neighbors were like, well, I live in a single family residential zoning district. I now have this 2, 3, 4 bedroom thing that's being added to my neighbor's house. And it's not what I expected when I moved into a single family residential zoning district. So, I mean, that's an area. And that's something also, like I said, the zoning commission hasn't landed like what's the appropriate scale for a single family zoning district. The last thing is just the process. Like I said earlier, the new state law, this is, you come to the counter and it's approved, provided you demonstrate compliance to the limited design standards and statute. If the commission were to say, no, we're going to regulate it, they could say, no, we're still going to regulate it. We're still regulated through a site plan approval. So at least it goes to a commission. So the neighbors may know that this, the house next door has an accessory dwelling unit. Because otherwise, via the statute, this new statute, you will not know whether next door has 1, 2, 3, 4, what apartments, let's just say, or really it's limited only 2, but you won't have that same sort of sense to know, like right now it goes through a public process. Granted, it's an administrative public process, which we got away from the public hearing process that previously pre-2018, 2019, every accessory dwelling unit went through that public hearing process. We now do an administrative process, which it shortens down the discretionary function of the zoning commission. It's down to, do you meet the standards that it's approved?
So my next question would be, how long would it take zoning to come up with regulations
So
if they don't adopt these?
opting out will give them the ability, they can do this in upcoming months. As you see, that they have until 2023 to adopt regulations. So our current regulations will not be considered null and void if we opt out.
Okay.
It preserves, they could say, let's say that let's say the zoning commission and the board of selectmen agree, opt out. The zoning commission then takes 3 to 4, 6 months. They look at accessory dwelling units, whether it's Connecticut regs, across the country. They determine, the statute isn't so bad. We're gonna just modify our regs and mirror the statute, at least for design standards. Process, they may disagree with the process. They can do that, or they can say, what we have right now, we're going to keep.
So this would give us more flexibility to come up with our own standard. Okay.
Well,
And there would have to be a public hearing on that?
So yeah, there'll be 2 public hearings. There'll be a public hearing to opt out, then there'll be a public hearing, and then this commission would have a role in any sort of new standards for accessory dwelling units through the 8.3 referral to find consistency with the plan of conservation and development.
Dave, you had your hand up?
Mike, as I recall, we discussed accessory housing units when we were talking about the affordable housing plan, but I don't think we have any reference to that in the affordable housing plan today.
Nor the POCD.
I thought we did in the
And
POC.
I recall that there were other communities that use accessory housing units as one of their ways of getting more affordable housing.
So the town of Milford, Connecticut requires a deed restriction for accessory dwelling units. So they get some points out of those accessory dwelling units. You are correct, Dave. There are communities that are doing this.
Well, I just wonder whether, I'm in favor that we can opt out and let zoning come up with this, but I think that if this is one of the means of expanding the affordable housing, I'm not sure what we do, but because we haven't even mentioned it in our draft plan. I just bring that up as when I saw this, I said, wait a minute. And I went back to the affordable housing plan and read it, and there's nothing in it on accessory housing units.
Really?
Considering that we just, that the zoning commission just went through a process of public hearings for input into their 2008 of the regulations, I'm inclined to suggest that they opt out in order to take the time to examine what we heard from our townspeople relative to these new regulations.
Okay, presumably
and,
the state legislation was crafted to make it easier for people to make or have accessory dwelling units. Okay.
Oh, I get that. I get that. I just, we.
So isn't
I
that
pointed out, it's
like Dave said, it's right in the wheelhouse of expanding affordable housing, maybe not by the definition, but housing that people can afford. Let's put it that way.
I'm concerned a little bit about this. I actually, to be honest with you, have several questions because I'm not an expert on ADUs. I remember we cover them sometimes in that legislative class we take every couple of years at Middlebury, at
Wesleyan.
Wesleyan, that's what I'm trying to think of. So these aren't separate deeds. They cannot be sold separately from the house itself, right, Mike?
Right. They're part of the house.
And they can't be used as Airbnb, can they?
As of Monday night, actually last night, the Board of Selectmen approved Airbnb, a short-term rental ordinance, which would become effective January 1st, 2022.
But does that,
So they
could be built for that purpose?
It could, but they would be limited under the ordinance to renting that through short-term rental purposes to 100 days per calendar year. And however, the state statute, the new statute, says that communities can regulate the use of the ADU for short-term rental purposes. So that the commission doesn't have to worry about, doesn't have to say we have to opt out or create a regulation. We have the rights to say, if you're using it for a short-term rental, Airbnb, VBRO, whatever, Craigslist, you're subject to our ordinance.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is if we opt in, and now we have these larger ADUs that can, that our town people said they didn't like, the neighbors didn't like, they can be used to be rented 100 days. Which isn't affordable housing at all. But if we don't like that, if we see that it upsets people, we can regulate that down in the future to be, 10 days or something. Right, okay. So my concern is, in engineering, I always look at the law of unintended consequences. And anytime you make a perturbation to a system, it bears thinking this out. The thing about affordable housing is there's a lot of words that may or may not lead to greater affordable housing. So I don't blindly accept something that declares itself to deliver on that promise. My fear is a lot of people, and I'm guilty. I'll tell you, I've thought about this. I have a property, a lakeside property. I'm thinking ka-ching, ka-ching. So I'm not thinking affordable property, but I think an ADUs in order, if that's going to be allowed. So as guardians of our town's way of life, I just feel that I just feel caution is always advised, and especially since the zoning commission just went through public hearings to gather input from the townsfolk, just to see, well, maybe we ease into this. Although in all fairness, 2023, it happens regardless of whether we opt in or out, right, Mike? So that's
if we opt out, we control our own destiny. If we
forever.
If we decide take no action, the law applies.
But if we opt out, what is the 2023 deadline date?
That's the deadline for us to develop new regulations.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I guess I'm just going to say I like to be in control of our own destiny. But that's just my point of view.
And I apologize because I can't see everybody. So there is some reference on page 90 of the POCD. Provide for appropriately scaled accessory apartments. 10.2. It talks about maintaining or providing for a range of housing choices. There was something else I had over here, but I don't remember.
Right, and I think that the zoning
And
commission.
so there's several. There's several places. Talking about the future development reflecting appropriate uses for that area. So I think, but it does say accessory apartments. So there is some mention of it in the POCD that I think we certainly would be able to guide us. I'm just throwing that out there because I think someone had mentioned that.
Oh, sorry, Aaron.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just kind of taking Holly's thought the next step. It's true that the zoning commission just published new zoning regulations, and within that is the accessory dwelling unit requirements. I'm really torn here. I think if you believe the state statute will make it easier for ADUs to exist, and you believe that has a positive effect on the diversity of the housing stock, then I would vote, or I'd send back a referral saying, do not, we're not a negative referral to the opt-out solution. But, with all the time and effort that's been spent on defining the accessory dwelling units in the current regulations, I personally, I believe we should send back a positive referral, but I'm not sure on what basis. Other than that, we trust that the zoning commission has done their due diligence in developing the new regulations, and that the town is satisfied with that.
You could just send to the zoning commission, rather than the positive referral, you could just say that you support the actions of the zoning commission, because you think of it, your referral really is going to apply. Is it consistent or not with the POCD? Well,
that's what I'm trying. Yeah, that's what I'm wrestling with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we opt out, we're not having accessory dwelling units. It's still an option. It's just that we took the effort to hold public hearings to gather the input of our townspeople in crafting an accessory dwelling set of zoning regulations. But those regulations are consistent with our POCD. And in fact, I believe we gave positive referral for those acceptance of those regulations, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it'd be kind of duplicitous on our part to say, oh, you know what, but in the meantime, we think those guys in Hartford have a better idea.
Yeah, I like that
So
approach.
that's just where I'm coming from. I'm just,
Yeah, it's a good point, Holly.
Okay, so how do
I'm
we
all for ADUs. I just feel that we should take
regulate?
into account the wishes of our townspeople.
All right, so how do we put that in words? Dave, what do
Do
you
we
have?
need a motion, Bill?
We need a motion of some sort, yeah.
Can you help us, Mike?
Well, I think Aaron brought up a good section of the POCD that without giving a finding consistency, you can just say in considering section, is it 10.2
10.2.
Yeah,
of the POCD, the commission felt that appropriately scaled ADUs helped. What did it say? Did it say diversify housing stock? Did we say something like that? Or
it's under housing diversity, yeah.
Yeah, it's 10.2. You want me to get here? I've got.
yeah, I was just about to pull it up myself.
No, here. So on
It's 10.2.3.
Yeah.
10.2 is where.
Oh, 10.2A3.
Yeah.
On page 90.
But it's saying it's the 10.2 says seek ways to help meet the diverse housing needs of present and future residents, or providing for a range of housing choices for people of all ages and economic circumstances.
Yeah, I don't know if that's much to stand on. Yeah, that can be interpreted in many ways. I still like Holly's approach, saying, hey, the zoning or the planning commission had the opportunity to review the revised zoning regulations and found them to be consistent with the POCD, and we don't see a need to make significant changes to the ADU section at this point based on state requirements.
There you go. You can say that too.
How is that,
But
Mike?
if we're basing it on the POCD,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if you have to.
Well,
Well,
we did give a positive referral based on the POCD
Right.
at that
Right.
time.
That's true. Maybe you can say that.
So our positive referral to the revised zoning regulations, whenever that happened, Mike, I don't remember, was it 2019?
It was late 2018, 2019.
Right. So our positive referral at that point reflected consistency with the POCD. And we believe that the existing regulations are still consistent with the POCD. No need to make changes basically agreeing to opt out, or a positive referral to opt out. Okay, so I guess that's my motion. I move that we return a positive referral to opting out of the Connecticut Public Act 21-24, I think it is. 2129, based on the Planning Commission's previous positive referral to revised zoning regulations for the town of Simsbury, including those regulations pertaining to ADU. And we don't feel there's any need to change at this point.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, Dave. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to return a positive referral to opt out, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Good. A lot of thought in there. Appreciate that. Okay, next on the agenda is an item that popped up in the Open Space Committee meeting last week, where Francine, how do you pronounce her last name, Mike? Beeland? The town assessor was seeking some guidance on how to administer what's commonly known as Public Act 490, which allows certain property owners to submit an application that essentially has a portion of their property or the whole property or a portion of their property assessed at a lower value than what would be the going rate. I know I'm not explaining that well, but how's it referred to, Mike? It's like a different use assessment or actual use. You know, just as an example, say someone had 50 acres, right? And they had a house on it. Well, they could apply and say, hey, I'm only really using 1 or 2 acres for my house, and the rest I'd like to be qualified as under PA 490 as open space or as farmland or
Agricultural.
or forest. There's 3 different categories, and then the assessor, and this kind of blew me away. Then I think it's the assessor's job to determine what the value is. So Francine's looking for some guidance, and you know, she referred to a section in I think it's some Connecticut general statute. I don't remember which one. That says that the Planning Commission will include in the POCD, or actually the wording says the Planning Commission may include in the POCD an open space plan.
I'll pull it up for you, Bill.
So it's 12107.
12107 E. Classification of land as open space. And if the commission may designate, it's not a mandatory thing like in section 8-23 dealing with development of the POCD. This is it's your discretion on assisting her with this.
Right, and then to complicate matters in our POCD, there is let me find it, PA 490. This is it's on printed page 54. So that's section 7.4. Preserve and enhance the scenic characteristics of Simsbury. You scroll down to some of the actions in box C. It says continue to use the PA 490 assessment reduction program. There it is, CGS 12107, to help preserve undeveloped land as long as possible. And it goes on to say review the criteria for PA 490 open space assessment category to evaluate whether to extend incentives to residentially zoned parcels less than 25 acres in size. Now, what's confusing here is nobody can find what the current criteria are. Is that still true, Mike?
Yeah, so we have a few properties that I think it's about 13 of them that are being taxed as open or designated as open space for tax purposes under the PA 490 Act. And this goes back to the 70s, some of them. And we don't know how or why certain parcels were placed into this while others were not. There's not a clear, and you can't compare them all and say, oh, well, they're all 25 acres or more. There are a few that are less than 25 acres. There's a few that are less than 5.
Yeah, there are some that don't abut any other open space, and some look like people are just paying less taxes.
Yep.
So the way I see it, and Mike, you'll recognize my little spiel here because I put it in my email to you and Francine. Two ends of the spectrum. One, we can make it very, very liberal application of the statute, making it very easy for people to apply and be granted this status. Will that save open space? Yeah, maybe in one or two cases, I don't know. But will it reduce the tax revenue? Yeah, it will. Now, I should back up and say this PA 490, it's not without strings. Okay. So you pledge, the property owner pledges to maintain this status for 10 years. Okay. And if you don't, just a second, Dave, if you don't, there's a clawback provision.
Yeah.
Where you have to pay what the market rate or the market assessment and appraisal and assessment would have been for those that period of time. Now it gets very confusing to me when a property sold. Okay. And that property may have been benefiting from PA 490, and the new owners may or may not be aware of that. I have a little experience with this because the property that my father owned was classified as this, and we had to be very careful how it was managed to not trigger the back taxes and not scare away potential buyers of the land. But so the one end of the spectrum is make it very easy for people to gain this status. I don't know how many people would do it. Okay. Just as an example, Francine mentioned in the open space committee meeting that maybe we should contemplate any residentially zoned parcel that is more than twice the minimum zone square footage. So if someone lived in a R40, which is 40,000 square foot, roughly 1 acre zone, if they had 2 acres, they could apply for this reduced assessment. Now, the other end of the spectrum, as I can see it, is make it very difficult for people to be granted this status. Really put criteria on that say it can only be done for areas abutting current open space or parcels that are over 100 acres. To me, that's how you preserve and kind of maybe either postpone or prevent subdivisions from happening. This would minimize the number of parcels that qualify and, in theory, kind of maximize the tax revenue because people wouldn't be getting a discounted assessment.
I actually am in favor of the latter approach, making, having the restrictions around it or conditions that would make it more difficult for someone to qualify for this. Because if this is typically used in agricultural situations, somebody and then oops, now they want to develop it into houses, and so the clawback provision has to be very carefully worded and thought out.
Yeah.
So I'm not confused, but so Mike, it sounds like there's this provision, but the town doesn't have any real rules around it. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than certain parcels that are enjoying this, we don't have rules on how they got into it. There are some, however, that, like, for example, like in PA 490 forestry, which is spelled out in statute. You have a forester that goes out, does a forestry report. We have parcels that are like that's following statute, but there's this other swath of ones. And I think Francine's biggest concern right now is that someone can come in tomorrow and say, well, Bill Rice enjoys this nice reduction. Mike Liddon wants it too. And
Right.
the only difference between Bill Rice and Mike Liddon is I have 3 acres and he has 7 acres. But
Right. So so we've got 2 issues. One, we don't know how the town years ago granted but we don't have any rules on how to grant moving forward.
correct.
Okay.
But
So-
but I think the Connecticut general statute, Mike, says it's up to the assessor to
Yep.
make that, to evaluate the application. So
So-
we have an assessor.
But shouldn't we give some guidelines? Because she's sounding like,
I don't know if it's us, Erin. She kind of, was asking through the open space committee, and because I'm on that committee, she was looking to have the POCD revised to provide some guidance.
oh, I don't think that would be part of the POCD, right?
Well, it could be by regulation, as Mike showed
But it's
us.
not a regulation. I mean, it's not.
No, but if we included something that's, we have a map in the POCD right now that's called open space plan.
Yeah,
That's really an inventory of the open space. Okay.
right.
If you expand or change the definition of open space plan to include those parcels that the planning commission believes should be preserved in the future. Okay. But we don't have the ability to do it at that point. But just, let's say I can't even think of an example. Okay, but I'm sure we could find something, some big parcel adjacent to an already somehow protected open space.
There isn't, or maybe Mike, some of the land that was in the latest referendum in terms of the town's acquisition, the acquisition of of that land, which has historically been tobacco land, used for raising tobacco. Are we going to potentially face that in that thing?
It doesn't apply to town-owned property, Dave.
Because we don't pay taxes.
Right.
Well, okay, all right. Maybe you're right. You're right.
Bill, maybe here's an example. Tower Ridge Golf Course. Let's just say that Tower Ridge was going to lay fallow for another year. It
Yep.
abuts a state park.
Right. Yeah, perfect.
There's an example. Do we feel that, and that gets into that may designate language that's in 12107E, where the commission say, well, we'll designate it as open space because we feel it's, for various reasons should be preserved. And then you could talk about the connectivity that it abuts a state property. I mean, that's the only one that's coming to my mind right now, but that's already, also it's somewhat preserved at this point. I think if it was more of a vacant parcel and it wasn't even a golf course, I think that you really would have that argument to say, let's designate that on the open space plan. And like you said, it's just suggestion to say that it should be protected.
So going back to my question, though, it would be nice to have some guidelines to be able to give the assessor, right? I mean, that's because this is why you've got these parcels and you have no idea how they were approved. And we don't know how is that going to get approved? I'm not sure how to go about, who is it? If it's not us or open space, who would be the ones doing it? And how do we help?
Yeah, I think it would be done, Mike, if I remember correctly, through various consultation with the land use commissions. The Board of Selectmen would issue a ordinance.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So the land use commissions would have to get together, come up with some guidelines, present those to the Board of Selectmen.
Well, actually, I think the legislative body, the Board of Selectmen, would actually drive the bus on that.
Yeah.
You would be providing them input onto their ordinance.
Gotcha. But how would it get on their table? How would it get on their docket?
Francine would have to push that, the assessor.
So she'd have to go
or the open space committee. Because that is one of their charges.
I'm concerned, as I said earlier, I do believe that there does need to be some fairly defined wording about this. But I'm concerned if we're trying to conjure this up, and stuff it into the POCD, I don't think that's where it belongs.
I don't think so either.
So I'm torn here. I believe that it does need to have some specificity, but I don't know enough to do that specificity.
Well, I think just one comment to consider is that, remember, your POCD is supposed to be advisory. It's a non-regulatory document.
Right.
So a good POCD, you try to keep out anything that could be considered regulatory out of that document, because you're just guiding where do we want to be in 10 years. So
All right.
I think the language in there right now kind of points towards, well, in 10 years, we'd like to have criteria, which would be developed by the appropriate individuals.
I
Yeah,
agree.
it's kind of weird though, Mike. It does, I'll share it.
Yeah, that 12107 is a strange statute.
Yeah, I think maybe Glenn was, oops, am I sharing yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to get my POCD, but I don't have it right now. Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So here's the reference to PA 490, and the action is review the criteria for the PA 490 open space assessment category to evaluate whether to extend incentives to residentially zoned parcels less than 25 acres in size. So to me, that intimates that there's a set of criteria, including a requirement that it's going to be 25 or more acres.
Well, there, we did it. It's already there.
And we put it on the town. So I think Francine's real request to me, representing the planning commission, was to include in the POCD a open space plan. And I'm not inclined to do it. I think there's other ways to develop criteria that will determine whether a property is compliant or qualifies for the reduced assessment.
I would agree
I
with
have
you,
a
Bill.
dumb question.
I don't think it goes in the POCD because it's a bit too regulatory. I mean, I think that so, but what I'd like to see is an action plan of what we're going to do to move that along. Because I personally think, just in this discussion, there needs to be some criteria, guidelines, whatever we want to call it, to be able to give to the town assessor. And I don't know the best way to go about that. It sounds like we would have to bring this. What I'm afraid is going to happen after this discussion, nothing's going to change. So I want to see us continue to stay on this to make sure something does change and something is put in writing to give us some guidelines and give the assessor some guidelines, whatever. But
so, Mike, have you had any other conversations with Francine? Do you really know what she's looking for?
Actually, Bill, the conversation I've had, it basically voiced the same opinion that you've provided tonight.
Okay. She's caught between a rock and a hard spot.
she is.
Bill, isn't this under the jurisdiction of the Open Space Committee? It seems like they would be.
Could be. Yeah, if the Board of Selectmen wants to, have the Open Space Committee create a working, subgroup or something to come up with suggestions, I think that would be reasonable.
I do too.
And I hope I would be on that.
I agree with
Oh,
that.
there, yeah. And we hope so too.
Well, you guys be careful because you don't know what you're going to get. You know my position. I think we have enough open or protected space in Simsbury already. So I would make this very hard for someone to be granted this status.
Well, Bill, I'm inclined to agree with you insofar as I was surprised that it could only be a 10-year commitment. To me, is is permanently designated open space. And if you're not willing to do that, you are playing tax games, to my point of view.
Right, well, yeah, the trade-off is the 10-year period, right?
Yeah. And
That's
I
where-
don't think 10 years is what I call open space. I mean,
Yeah, and it's also, it's not like, it's not like the other open space. It's not like people can go on your property. It's
Right, I
just-
was just thinking that, Bill.
Yeah,
I
it's,
do, yeah.
it's purely, okay, I can't say it's purely to benefit the landowner. It's not true. If it convinces a landowner not to subdivide their property, okay, then it's achieved the goal of maintaining or preserving undeveloped land. Fine.
temporarily.
Temporarily,
Yeah.
right? Well, hey, we're all for responsible development, right?
I was thinking that same thing though, Bill, I have to say. I'm like, okay, if open space is preserved, but if it was in my backyard, it's not like you and the rest of the planning commission are going to traipse through my yard because it's open space. It's not accessible to everybody, and that's part of, open space. But I still, so I go back to my question. Can we make some kind of recommendation on how this we suggest this move forward? Does someone talk to the assessor to say, go, you know what I mean? Like what are we going to do? You brought this up to us because this came through open space. Now what are we going to do?
Let's do this. Let me do this. Mike, I'll pen a correspondence to the Board of Selectmen. Okay. Explaining that we discussed this and why we discussed this and why we think it's important to be discussed further. And that the recommendation is that the Board of Selectmen approach or convene a subgroup of the Open Space Committee to develop a draft, let's say, ordinance to clarify how PA 490 is going to be applied in Simsbury.
I agree with that.
Bill, do you want me to take a stab at that correspondence and send it to
I'll
you?
do it. I'll do it, Mike. I've been thinking about this a lot. No,
Thank
it's
you.
it's wonderful the information we have at our fingertips now. And I opened up the Simsbury GIS map and started clicking on parcels, and I'm like, oh, really? And then on other ones, I'm like, I wonder why they're not, taking advantage of PA 490, and maybe they don't want to. Then that's understandable, right? Maybe they don't know about it. Maybe it's
Probable.
maybe it's a tight knit group of people, because this PA 490 seems to be very focused in a particular area of town. So I'm not making any conclusions or anything. I'm just, I am presenting the data that the majority of the PA 490 classified properties are pretty close to each other. Now, maybe it could be coincidence.
It could be, but I think, Bill, you bring up a good point that if this is on the books, we should take a look at it, and there should be some guidelines to help the town moving forward.
Yeah.
And Bill, you could even say it was a goal of the POCD to look at this.
Yeah.
For the town to look at it.
Yeah, I'll put that in there.
Good point.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be, okay, I won't be able to make details, because if we're up to me, I would not be looking at parcels less than 25.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we're just trying to move this forward. I mean, that if you're on a subcommittee, that's when you can bring that up, right? We're just trying to move this along. Yeah.
Yeah, this will be, written from a perspective of helping the assessor and reducing ambiguity as to how certain say criteria
Parcels are picked.
are applied. Yeah.
And Bill, this says to evaluate whether to extend.
Yeah.
This doesn't say you will. This is just giving so. Yeah. No, I think it makes sense to have some kind of guidelines.
Mike, do you know if Francine's had any conversations with Maria, for instance?
Yeah, we've had staff meetings about this in the past.
Okay,
So,
yeah, okay. I think we got a blind spot here that needs to be addressed.
I agree.
agreed.
Good. Okay, Mike, it might not be till early next week, but I will get that composed and sent to you. And, if you want to, we can discuss it and ultimately get it submitted to the BOS,
Sounds good.
or at least to Maria. I don't know who it goes to.
I would probably say address it to Maria and then the first selectman. At least
Okay.
that way it gets it on the Board of Selectmen's radar too.
Okay, we can do that. Good. All right, thanks for the discussion, everybody.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Bill.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on, old business, we have none. Even though it's not on the agenda, Mike, do we have any correspondence we need to discuss? Oh, sorry, before I do that, I came across a document that was, stop sharing.
I was going to say,
Yeah, that I found very helpful in understanding PA 490. It's called Connecticut's, Public Act 490, a practical guide and overview for landowners, assessors, and government officials. So
I've been reading that. Yeah, it's right on the website if you Google it.
That's from
Did you
the
send that?
Farm Bureau.
Yeah, it's from the Farm Bureau. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good document that gives you a lot of sound background.
I just sent it to everybody.
Thank you.
I've been while you've been talking, I've been reading it in the background.
You're not giving me your 100% attention.
This part of open space was the smallest part.
Yeah, there's three other categories, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Farmland,
it's the
forest land.
optional part.
Yeah. So, okay, that'll be in your however you receive emails from the town. I sent it to your contact emails. Good. Okay, so that's that. Mike, okay, any correspondence we need to be aware of? Any applications on the horizon?
No, I don't have anything, and I'm waiting on Glenn. Follow up on Glenn getting a
Right.
price from him, because depending on what that price is, that determines how I can handle contracting, etc.
Okay.
So, Michael, he did agree to
Give me
consult or
give me a quote.
to give a call. Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's first step. I was like, let's get a quote and go from
Yep.
there.
But he was at least willing to do that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Julie Eaton texted me. I can tell you what time. 7:09, and she apologized, but she was caught up in a work call and she wasn't going to be able to join. So she has an excuse.
Okay. Can I ask a question? I thought we had decided, and I forget because it's been a month, but I thought we had said we were going to go back to meeting in person if the mask mandate was lifted in town, or did I not get that right from our last meeting?
So the mask mandate is still in effect for town buildings.
Oh, it is. Okay. Thank you.
It's lifted to any building outside of the town facilities. So
if we were to meet at town hall, we'd have to wear masks.
yes.
Okay. All right.
Or the library, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the library too? We really?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was at a hybrid meeting. I was at home and I was like, I don't think they were wearing masks, but maybe they were. I don't know. I don't remember now. I thought they weren't at the library.
Okay, just to remind everybody, maybe we can, talked about noticing for election of officials, and we agreed to do it after the election. Okay, so if I understand correctly, let me see, where'd that information go? I think Dave Blumey, you were successful in being reelected. Craig McCormack was not. So Joe Campolita and,
And Don Colantonio.
yeah, okay, we're elected. And also what's that, Dave?
When do they begin?
Yeah, just one more thing. The alternate was person
Marcus Furs.
Furs. Yep. So, okay, yep. The big question, when do they start, Mike? December 1st?
Yeah, it's the same night that the Board of Selectmen's sworn in. I think that's the first.
Yes, that's right.
So that's all the elected officials are sworn in at the same date.
Okay,
And-
so, okay, go ahead, sorry.
So then
December 6th, I think it is.
you beat me to it. I was just looking at the calendar. So then you have, I think, I have to move over my calendar here. I think you have two
On the
meetings in
14th.
December.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we have one scheduled for the 14th and another for the 28th.
I thought we weren't. I thought we were only meeting once in December.
You could be right.
I thought that was one of the months where, because of the holidays, we were only meeting once. I'd have to try to find the.
Okay, so now let's kind of try to put this to bed. Let's see here. Planning Commission, search, meeting, schedule. Okay,
You have a meeting on the 28th.
we do.
We
Yeah.
do? Okay.
Yeah, you got
Maybe
the
that was
fourth.
that might have been last year.
And
Yeah.
the 14th, Mike?
And
That's
the-
correct.
Yep. Okay, so would people be comfortable voting on the 14th?
Yes.
Sure.
Now,
Sure.
that'll be the first meeting that the new commissioners attend.
Correct.
Okay. So Mike, then I want to revise my request. So for the 11/23 meeting, can we do our first notice for elections?
I will do that.
And then the second notice will be for the 12/14 meeting. And I'd like it to be on the agenda for that meeting.
So we do have a meeting on the 23rd of this month?
That's what my calendar shows. Yep.
All right.
You gonna be away, Dave?
Oh,
No. Okay. So Mike, that satisfies, okay, our
Bylaws.
bylaws say we need to notice it 2 meetings in advance.
Yep.
Okay, so the second meeting will be the election. Good, and with a primary focus on secretary. Okay. And as I've stated before, if anyone wants to nominate someone else for chairman, I won't have an issue with that, but similarly, I'm more than happy to continue to be chairman. So let's see what happens on the 14th. Good. All right. I think that's about it, everybody. Anything else?
What if there's a tie?
There's not going to be a
Let's cross
tie.
that bridge when we come.
No, there could be. There
Arm
could
wrestle.
could be,
You can
but-
always arm wrestle.
There could be an asteroid hit us in the meantime. Let's get into that.
I'm just saying, what if there's a tie?
I'll flip a coin.
Okay.
Okay, then, commissioners, thank you very much. Great job tonight. Mike, thank you. Laura, thank you. And is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so Holly, I'm going to take you. Motion to adjourn. Is there a
I second
second?
Holly's motion.
Dave, yeah, okay. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously 4-0, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:07 p.m.